Hi, good morning, everyone. We're going to start today with the City of Rochester's Reparations and Universal Basic Income. We are the subcommittee for the UBI committee. So good morning, my brothers and sisters. My name is Gina Cruz, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the UBI subcommittee. So welcome to our webinar today. We have slide. That's it, Sharon. Hold on. I will get the slides up and go through the agenda. Give me 1 second. Oh, geez. How do I get to you? Sure. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes, can we put it in slide mode, Gina, so we don't see the notes?
Are you there? Can you see it?
Yeah, it's just in slide. Yeah, put it in slide mode. Hey, Mercedes, you got to change your name. My link has my name on it.
Hold on 1 second.
Honored that you would have my name under you.
Can you hear me, Gina?
I can. Now I can. Yes. So put it in slide mode.
Yeah.
So I need to come back out because I think it just picked it up that way. This is why. Is it still sharing? All
Not right now.
All right, so I'm gonna put this over here. Let it in slide mode. And then now share my screen. Good morning. Sorry for the technical difficulties this morning. We want to welcome you today to our to reparations and universal basic income. I'm Gina Cruz. I'm one of the co-chairs for the universal basic income subcommittee. So welcome, everyone. We want to take the time to thank you for being here today. Today's agenda will be some housekeeping rules, a welcoming from Aqua. Larry will be going over the universal basic income and guaranteed basic income, some examples of eligibility. We'll have a community discussion and questions, and then we'll thank you. Some housekeeping rules right now. From housekeeping rules, we are live on Facebook and on YouTube. This also will be recorded and put on the RUBI.com website. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the question and answer chat below, and we will answer your questions at the end of the webinar. All questions, we might have some questions that have been emailed in from people who weren't able to make it today. So we might answer some questions from them. It's a possibility we'll call you in for, we'll put you as a panelist to ask the questions as well. So we're excited to have you here today. We're here to educate and to not only to educate and discuss UBI, but to listen to our citizens and I give the floor to my partner, Ms. Aqua Porter.
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate everyone who's here with us today. And my role today is very small. I just really want to welcome everyone and give a little bit of background on the UBI subcommittee and the charge that we were given. The committee was given by our mayor, Lovely Warren. She brought a group of people together to look at 3 areas regarding how we could change lives and uplift neighborhoods in our community. She started by saying that reparations and universal basic income is about changing lives, and it's an opportunity for our residents and a potential game changer for families to overcome poverty. She said that home ownership is the way for residents to overcome poverty and build wealth, and that we wanted to exhaust every option that's available to us in order to change outcomes. And so our subcommittee specifically is the UBI subcommittee, where we are looking at cash benefits to residents of Rochester and looking in other communities at how they have piloted some of these same potential opportunities, and asking our community specifically what that might look like for them, and kind of feedback to what we are proposing as a way to pilot a what we are calling a guaranteed basic income, and Larry will talk about that a little bit later. Do you want to go to the next slide, Gina? Is that my slide or is that your slide?
That's yours.
Okay. So the overall RUBI committee for the city is comprised of 3 subcommittees. If you and those subcommittees are reparations, UBI, and housing. And there are 2 co-chairs. I'm a facilitator. So we are really, I really want to just thank Brittany Wells, who is the mayor's chief of staff, and Dr. Cephas Archie, who is the director of the chief equity officer, and myself as the 3rd facilitator. We are a 20-member committee, and we have been working since July in these 3 areas. Today's session is specifically around guaranteed basic income, but the other 2 committees, the reparations committee and the housing committee, are also having community sessions, town halls, or other ways of gathering feedback back from the community. And so if you haven't participated or you're interested in participating in one of those, please be on the lookout for press releases or information on the Facebook page about when those things are happening. Our committee is also having another community engagement session on this coming Wednesday. And so for those who are interested and might not been able to attend today, we are going to repeat this session on Wednesday, and looking for additional input from the community. How about we go to the next slide and we just talk about who's on the subcommittee. So my esteemed and lovely co-chair, Gina Cruz, has been instrumental in making sure that our small subcommittee was doing its work. Larry Knox will be a presenter today. We also have Nicole Hushler-Ree, who is unable to make it today. Tremaine Harris, who is also in school today. Stanley Martin is another member of our committee, and Mercedes Phelan is also here with us today. So that makes up the UBI subcommittee, who's been working, looking at options, doing benchmarking and best practices, talking to other cities. Gina actually just came back from Chicago last weekend, where she was actually able to talk to, as a part of a delegation from Rochester, to look at what was happening in other cities. And that gave us the opportunity to really look at what other cities were doing and talk to people who were engaged in that work. I would just want to end by saying that this committee was charged with educating the community, making sure we had community input, and looking at developing a pilot understanding the differences between universal basic income and guaranteed basic income. There's a lot of terminology out there. Larry's going to walk you through where we landed and what we think is the best option for Rochester. We were also asked to develop and propose a pilot that was informed by lessons from other cities, also informed and designed with the Rochester residents and aligned with the recommendations from the RAISE report. The recommendation that we are making should include who the population would be, what the cost would be, what the numbers served would be, what the eligibility criteria is, what any program requirements are, how we'll measure and assess the process, and a timeline and implementation process, and who's the program owner. And then finally, we were asked to create a policy resolution to be presented to Mayor Warren. So today's work is to really get community input as a part of this process and hear from community residents about their thoughts on universal basic income, guaranteed basic income. Would this be something that would work for Rochester? You know, are we looking at the right target population? Should we be looking at other populations? And then taking that and continuing to refine our recommendation. I think that's all I have, Gina.
We'll turn it over to Larry.
Okay.
And Larry will discuss universal basic income versus guaranteed basic income. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Aqua.
Yeah, you're welcome, of course.
You're on mute, Larry.
Boy, what a way to start. Unmute. Mercedes, please don't hesitate to hop in too with your thoughts as we go through this. So thank you everybody for attending and or watching this at a later date, since I know many of you people will be watching this later. So there's two, as Aqua mentioned with the charges of the committee, looking at universal basic income, and as another part of universal basic income is also guaranteed basic income, which are actually two different models that we've been looking at and considering. Universal basic income, a wide kind of definition, is everybody's eligible. There are no eligibility requirements, so it's all populations. As long as you are, usually 18 or over, you automatically get a certain amount of money in universal basic income. In some places, this is worldwide. Even there's version of this where everybody gets money even if you're under 18. But here, the idea in the United States is that for universal basic incomes, usually say everybody is eligible. It's a reoccurring payment that could mean monthly or yearly or quarterly, but it's something that you get more than once over a lifetime. Just a payment that is constant, set amount that varies from place to place, but everybody gets it no matter how much they make, and it's a set amount that everybody gets. There's no income requirements, so you could be a millionaire, you could be destitute, and you will still get the basic amount. And the idea of universal basic income is that it takes care of many of your living expenses. It's enough where you can pay for things or put money towards things, and it's something that the government or the state will give you no matter what. And the rationale behind it is that it takes care of people's concerns, that it's something that they don't have to worry about to a certain degree, certain living expenses or other things that they need to get by, because the government has provided a base amount of income for you. Yeah, it's also a lot of money, obviously, if we were proposing, as we look deeply at it, a universal basic income here in Rochester, where everybody will qualify. The cost of that goes up, pretty quickly, pretty high, with everybody qualifying for that amount. Next slide. Another program is guaranteed basic income, which is something else that we've been looking at. And I think what we really want to get from the community and your thoughts and ideas on is this as an idea. It's a lot more focused. Economic relief, again, it's usually, although not always, a payment to a family or to a person. is targeted though, so not everybody is eligible. You have to meet certain requirements, eligibility requirements to take part in the program. Obviously, with both these ideas that we're looking at, we're just talking about city residents, since this is a program of the city of Rochester. So no matter which way we go, the main requirement would be that you have to be a city of Rochester resident from Guaranteed or for Universal. Also for Guaranteed is targeted. And our targets that we are looking at, and that the vast majority of these do use, one of the metrics they use is people that are at or below certain poverty levels. And we'll get a little bit more later into the details of what poverty levels that we're looking at in the limited time disbursements. So obviously we love to do a program that's permanent, 50 years of guaranteed basic income guaranteed to everybody, although we're not there yet. But this program that we're looking at, there will be a time period of a year or two that we would do this, and that would help with making sure that we can fund it properly, because there is going to be a funding cost to this, and the time and the amount of people in the program would lead us towards how much funding it would cost to do this. No strings attached to how recipients spend the money. The main thing with our idea of the way the program would work is, if we're giving you the money, we're not going to say it has to be used for X, Y, or Z. In the vast majority of time when people have taken part and used guaranteed income or universal basic income programs, the money has gone to things that are necessary. It's gone to childcare, it's gone to food, it's gone to the gas and electric, it's gone to utilities. Ironically, in a lot of these programs, the places that make out the best aren't necessarily somebody buying, themselves, cigarettes or alcohol, which is a concern that people have, unfortunately. But 95% of the time, that money just goes to utilities, bills, other debts that people have, and it really goes back into the community. But there's no strings attached to how the recipient spends the money. And the whole idea around, if you go to the next slide, the whole idea of why we have this, besides the fact that extra money is always good for people, is that what are the reasons for that? Common Ground has put out a report earlier in the year that talks about health disparities. Poverty is one of the main reasons that we have health disparities in our community. So putting extra money into people's pockets helps on many, many levels, not just paying bills, but also with mental health and physical health. And those costs, if they come down, are better for the community, and just let alone better for somebody's life well-being. Poverty during the pandemic last year, which we're also experiencing, it's traumatic. It's been a tragedy that's hit our community. It's traumatic. And for people that are living in poverty or close to the poverty level, losing that income and losing family and the trauma that we all went through and we're going through as a country underneath COVID has been exacerbated by the large amounts of poverty that we have in our nation and our community. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, we believe, but one of the things that's been interesting surrounding the poverty levels nationwide is they didn't fall as far as many people thought. In fact, poverty as a whole across the nation, the poverty levels actually either stayed the same or went down across our nation during the pandemic. And why is that? It was because of the money that came from the federal government in regards to all the help we got from the different stimulus packages that families got from the federal government because of COVID. Those, $1,200 or $1,600, depending on your family size, but the thousands of dollars that people got either from the government and also an increased unemployment aid. And for a lot of people, that helped them stay out of or even move out of poverty. And those are monies that came from the government on a monthly basis or for unemployment or weekly basis for enhanced unemployment and unemployment. And, depending when you got your check from the federal government, from the various stimulus packages, and all that money that came in was used, and that helped get people either out of poverty or keep them from falling further into poverty. And universal basic income and guaranteed basic income going forward would be another way of keeping people out of poverty or enable them to move out of poverty. So what are we looking at? Because obviously we're not going to have hundreds of billions of dollars to give everybody a certain check. We want to concentrate on certain populations. Obviously, the second going across left to right, $500 to 500 people is our idea for 1 year to start off. And that would be 500 households. So it'd be, you know, 1 check per household. Must be a City of Rochester resident. Income requirements, 200% under the poverty level or less. So as an example, a family of 4 that makes $53,000 or less is at 200% of poverty level. And there's, you know, you could do further research. We can, you know, there's charts and graphs that show, depending how large your household is, what percentage of your poverty level that you would be under. But somebody would have to, a family or person would have to qualify by being 200% or under the poverty level or less. Ages, what we're thinking of, again, we want to get people's thoughts and ideas on this, are concentrating on people that are 16 to 35, and we'll explain a little bit later the 16 that, you know, 18, 19 part, 16 to 35, and single parents or single caregivers. And for folks that for people that are City of Rochester residents that are teens, are looking for teens head of households, or people that or teens are just you know, in foster care. So this, if you're just 16 and you're living at home and, you know, you have a family member or family that's supporting you, you wouldn't qualify for this. But if you're head of household, if you're emancipated, and we have those members of our community that are teenagers, they would also qualify if they're under 18. Also, formerly incarcerated individuals, when you come out of prison, or jail, and that whole the whole pipeline of support that is needed to help you move forward, you know, extra help. We want to make sure that individuals that are formerly incarcerated, you know, would have an opportunity or would be a part of this. Also, homeless individuals and families, obviously, you would fit underneath the requirement level for the poverty percentage, but we want to make sure we have that those are areas of the community that we're focusing on. And like I said, grandparents raising kids. Sometimes, as we all know, a parent may actually have legal custody, but it's oftentimes a grandparent or other kind of family member that's raising a child, and we want them to be able to, you know, take advantage also. These are all ideas and suggestions. Obviously, you know, it's something that we want to hear from the community about, but there is, if you go back, Jana, there is a reason that we're thinking of focusing on these populations. The $500, again, would just be per household. So even if there's 2 people that qualify in a household, we do want to spread this to as many households as possible. So it would be $500 per household per address. And there are other examples. If you look at other UBI and GBI programs that have gone on, there's literally hundreds of ideas across this country and dozens of programs that have started in different places. Some are studies, some are just going right out. We did have a discussion here of wanting everybody that is eligible, if we get funding for this, to help as many as possible. Not necessarily to have a control group where some people get it, some people don't, and compare and see what happens, and, you know, see if it works or not. We kind of believe, and we love to get community input, that that the idea has kind of been proven. We just want to be able to help out as many people as possible. We are thinking of, you know, if people do come in, of doing some kind of survey. So as you're part of the process of becoming eligible, see where you're at, you know, financially, and it's something we can work with the community on, and some of our local universities, and some of the nonprofit groups, of figuring out a way of being able to track people as the year goes in ways that they're comfortable with, to see how this is helping them. But it's the literature is out there, the research has been out there. Anybody that takes part in these programs, the vast majority end up better off at the end than they were at the beginning. Okay, next slide. So our so one more slide. Oh yeah, the numbers are there. Sorry, I see them up. So if our initial idea of how to break down, and these are approximate numbers, would be of how to break down what percentages of people would fall under what percentages of the federal poverty guideline. 50%, 25% between 150 and 200% of poverty level. So we think 25% of the 500 participants, family households, would be within that percentage of the poverty level. Another 25% who are between 100 and 150% of poverty, and then another 50%, at least half, who are under 100% of the federal poverty levels, as our thought of the breakdown. Again, love to hear people's thoughts and ideas on that. Is this my slide too? I don't remember. I can talk about it. So this is so if you look at Monroe County, which I think is the yellow one, the yellow bar in the middle, just single parent families by race and ethnicity. Boy, too early to say long words. 2015 to 2019, and this is from Act Rochester. Can we scroll down a little bit? Or is this the whole? So I think we're missing the bottom part of the. Gina, can you?
She has to make it, see if she can make it smaller. Can you make it any smaller so we can see the bottom, Gina, or no?
No, the bottom, are you not able to see what the bottom has on there?
I thought we had something else besides the counties and region, but
The black is Rochester, and the yellow is Monroe County.
Okay.
And then the rest are the region in New York State.
Gina, do you want to explain this one a little bit more, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can explain it. We did some research with Act Rochester and the RAISE report. And in the RAISE report, 80% of households are single parent households. And it has been, and there has been a huge increase since 2015 through 2019. A lot of this, per the Act Rochester and RAISE report, has been due to the incarceration rates of men of color, and causing constraints on and disparities in the family. We also did the arrest rates in Rochester. The arrest rates in Rochester, 170 arrests per 10,000 residents. And remember, we have about 210,000 residents in Rochester. So I'm not good at math, but imagine how many those numbers are. They have, it's a big high concentration in the African-American community and in the Latino community. Doesn't mean it doesn't go on with anyone else, but it's been huge increase. In times this week, there was a report for 2019 and 2020 where 30% of violent crime has increased as well. We also looked at the open reporter in Rochester Police Department, and the average age of murdered victims are 32. Okay.
Hey, Gina, do you know what that big green line is on that? Is that what?
That's region. The big line is our region. So the region, the red is New York State. The green is surrounding counties. I'm sorry. The teal color is region. The yellow is Monroe County, and then black is City of Rochester.
Okay.
Okay. And that's all across on both reports, all the reports. So for here, it's the same thing. The red is New York State, the teal is region, and the black is City of Rochester.
Yep, thanks, Gina. Another thing, going back to if you can go back, Gina. One thing, the previous one. If you're looking at the single family, if you're looking at the single parent families, another thing that we've talked about, and we'd love to get the community's ideas or thoughts about is, obviously there's certain areas of the city that have higher poverty rates than others. And the UBI ideas wouldn't necessarily be race-based, but they would be based off of where the highest poverty rates are, is an idea that we would have. And
Yes.
Concentrating in areas of the city where we have the highest poverty, making sure that we have, when people are applying or whatever process we have through a lottery or applying to be a part of the program, that we're concentrating in areas that have the highest poverty. And those areas that have the highest poverty, not surprising, also have the worst health outcomes and also have the higher amounts of single parent families, of all races, ethnicities. Another thing to kind of go back on with of how this will help. Another reason when I talked about the poverty rates and how, all the good outcomes that come out of lowering that, the child tax credit that everybody is getting who has children, based off based off your income if you qualify, and everybody that will be part of this program will qualify for the child tax credit. That's a monthly check that everybody is getting right now. That varies. I think it's $300 or $350 per child depending on age. That could be $369 to $100 depending how many children somebody has. But that's real money that people are getting at least to the end of the year underneath the federal government. Obviously, our program wouldn't be starting before the end of the year, but there's a good chance that that child tax credit might become a permanent thing going forward, depending what happens in Washington D.C., which you never want to bet on that. But it does seem like there is bipartisan support for that. So going forward, if that is something in some form that is still something that people are getting on a monthly basis, that child tax credit, which is kind of, in a way, a form of UBI or GBI. Yes, and we are also doing a program on top of that where we're helping, and some large part, families that are in that bracket of people that qualify for the credit. That could, literally be $800-900 at a minimum more that people are getting a month to help put towards themselves and their families to help, them get out of poverty or move further out of poverty. So there are other things going on in our nation that help supplement what we're doing, but here in Rochester, we really want to make sure that we take part in doing something that kind of speeds that process up, especially because we have some of the highest poverty rates in the country here.
Yes, and to add to that, we also need to make sure that it doesn't affect anyone who is receiving public assistance or any other services. So we also need to be leery of how we distribute and how it can affect them versus improve them as well.
Right. So there's a concern. We love to hear people's thoughts and ideas on this, either now or if you follow up with the email, if there's this idea called the benefit cliff. That actually there's a lot of good work being done here in Rochester by people to address it. Where if you're on social services, a lot of those, most of them, pretty much all of those are based off income. And if you make a little bit more money, you could fall out of qualifying for certain kinds of aid, from food stamps to housing support to direct aid. And there's a lot of ways you could kind of, make sure that you still stay qualified depending on how flexible your job is. What we want to make sure it doesn't happen is and one of the problems is you could maybe get a raise at your job, be making, $25 more a week based off your raise, but lose $500 a month of benefits because you no longer qualify for them. And we all can do, even if we're not great at math, everybody can do enough math where they know that doesn't make sense financially to take that raise or to report that or to give up that kind of money that you're needing to survive. So we wouldn't want that to happen with people that are getting or qualifying for this program, where if you're getting this extra money and somehow that's counted as income, then you're losing more in benefits than you're getting from the basic income. So as this goes forward, and other places that have done this, they've also worked with their municipalities, with the county or city or state, to work with all those agencies to make sure, find out ways that people wouldn't lose out on benefits they already may be qualifying for because they're getting this. But that is a real concern, and it's called the benefit cliff.
Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
We also had yesterday, there was a report out from Willow, and it discussed the huge, massive amount of calls that have been into the Monroe County, which was 43,827 calls regarding domestic violence. I know when I went to Chicago, one of the things that they were looking into was gender-based violence and how that could be worked into the guaranteed basic income. So I wanted to make sure to bring awareness to the fact that this could also be a possible target population. Willow alone had received 5,123 calls in 2020. And to my understanding, this year, they've gone over and above that as well. So if you have any questions, this is where we're monitor questions and answer any questions that we have. We don't see any questions in the box. What we will say is this is a recorded webinar. Also, the fact that if you have any questions, you can email them to rockruby@cityofrochester.gov. We are still working diligently to try to get our citizens' input on proposals and what target populations could be done. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at rockruby@cityofrochester.com.
Hey, Gina, I did want to ask Mercedes, just from the work that you do, Mercedes, anything that you want to add? So I know from your day job, some of the work that we're talking about here intersects a lot.
No, I mean, I think everybody touched on everything. Sorry, there's a small child in the background noise. But no, overall, you know, I think this is really important, and I'm looking forward to hear others' input to help us move forward.
Anyone else want to do a summary or?
I will say this, you know, this idea, I mean, it's been starting to be applied in more and more communities across the nation, the idea of GBI or UBI. You know, MLK first started talking about this, and he wasn't the first to talk about it, but
Yes,
first got wide, you know, one of the wider ideas, understandings of it first being addressed was when he talked about it in the 1960s, especially, you know, his second main campaign after the Civil Rights March was the War on Poverty. And, you know, the ideas of universal basic income and guaranteed basic income have even flourished even more since then. But this is something that helps everybody in society, even if you don't get it, the money, you know, moving people out of poverty, how that affects, as Common Ground Report talks about health, as we learned in the education system, if families are in poverty, that affects the education outcomes of their kids. And if you have generational poverty, that affects, you know, even worse, the outcomes of future generations of kids based off education and health. And here in Rochester, we have, you know, some of the highest poverty levels, and although they are getting a little bit better, some of the worst educational outcomes for the children in our community. And one way to address that is addressing poverty and high poverty. And you know, these universal or guaranteed basic income programs is one, not the only, but one of the ways that we feel that we feel is best for addressing those concerns that are going on in our community.
Aqua?
No, I think that we, you know, it's a very innovative approach to trying to help eradicate poverty. And we know that cash and income is the biggest way to decrease the gap between poverty and having a life that's where you're not living in poverty. So this is certainly really interesting and innovative. And we've seen a lot of cities where they have implemented these pilots and have found, I think, what we expect. People live better lives. They have some freedom to kind of maneuver through what's going on. They have a little bit more cash to weather some, you know, challenges. They have opportunities to invest in their futures. They have more cash to take care of their families and feed their families, you know, with better food more consistently. And so maybe offer opportunities for their kids that they may not have had the chance to do before. So I think all of these things just point to why this is really an important conversation that needs to happen in our community. And I look forward to being able to discuss it with our community members and get their input.
Thank you, Aqua. I too feel this is very important in our community. Even just going to Chicago and listening to the things that have happened over there and how it was able to improve mental health in housing and some of the issues that went on there and disparities that went on in Chicago. And working as in human services, I've seen a lot of poverty throughout the years. And so I think that this right here is really a great pilot program. We need the community's assistance in being able to know where to target our population. and to be able to understand our community, understand and know that poverty levels in Rochester are extremely high, you know. So we thank you so much for being able to be here today with us and listening to us. This will be on the RUBI.com website for you to view at a later date. We also have on Wednesday at 6 p.m. We will be live again and taking questions. And if you, again, if you have any questions that we weren't able to answer for you today, you can email us at rockruby@cityofrochester.gov. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.